Just after midnight on July 19, 1952, a sudden wave of anomalous signals disrupted routine airspace monitoring at Washington National Airport. Air traffic controller Edward Nugent noticed 7 distinct targets appearing on his radar scope, positioned over restricted airspace near the White House and the United States Capitol. These unknown objects were not listed on any military or civilian flight schedules, yet they moved across the scope with deliberate precision. The targets initially moved at low speeds, hovering between 100 and 130 miles per hour, before executing sudden accelerations that left experienced controllers thoroughly stunned. Nugent immediately alerted his senior supervisor, Harry Barnes, pointing out the glowing blips that continued to track across the radar screen. The unusual behavior of these targets did not match any known commercial aircraft or military fighter operations of that era. To confirm the validity of the tracking data, Barnes contacted the airport control tower, where controllers reported seeing bright lights floating in the night sky directly where the radar indicated. Seeking further verification, the team reached out to nearby Andrews Air Force Base. Radar technicians at Andrews checked their own independent scopes and immediately confirmed matching anomalies, proving that the signals were not caused by a localized electrical glitch. Across the region, multiple civilian and military radar stations began tracking the same group of unidentified targets as they traversed the restricted sky above Washington. The blips moved in loose formation, occasionally halting in midair before surging forward at velocities calculated far beyond the capability of contemporary jet aircraft. What had started as a routine late-night shift quickly transformed into a high-stakes military tracking operation over the Capitol. By early morning, Air Force fighter jets were scrambled from Newcastle Air Force Base in Delaware to intercept the targets over the Capitol region. As the F-94 Starfire jet interceptors entered the Washington airspace, radar operators on the ground guided the pilots toward the exact coordinates of the mysterious radar hits. The pilots looked out from their cockpits and observed bright, glowing objects that hovered and maneuvered with extraordinary ease. Whenever the interceptor aircraft attempted to close the distance to perform a closer inspection, the targets rapidly accelerated away, easily outpacing the military jets. In several instances, as soon as the fighters turned back toward their home base due to low fuel, the unidentified objects returned to their previous positions over key government landmarks. This repeated back-and-forth pattern left flight crews frustrated and military commanders deeply alarmed. The events of that midsummer night sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the American defense establishment. Defense officials found themselves unable to identify who or what was operating in the restricted airspace directly over the nation's political center. The clear breach of sovereign airspace raised serious national security concerns at a time when Cold War tensions were already running extremely high across the globe. News of the radar sightings broke across national newspapers the following morning, sparking widespread interest and anxiety among the American public. Front-page headlines reported that unknown objects had been tracked over Washington, forcing military spokespersons to respond to urgent inquiries from major press outlets. The government faced an immediate challenge in maintaining public order while attempting to determine the true nature of the atmospheric intrusion. Exactly 1 week later, on the night of July 26, 1952, the phenomenon repeated itself over the nation's capital. Radar scopes at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base once again detected a cluster of unidentified targets moving through restricted sectors. Controllers watched in disbelief as the blips exhibited the same erratic motion and high-speed maneuvers that had occurred 7 days earlier. Ground controllers calculated that some of the objects reached speeds over 7,000 miles per hour during rapid bursts across the tracking area. Remarkably, despite these extraordinary calculated velocities, ground witnesses and military personnel heard no sonic booms shattering the quiet night sky. The complete absence of acoustic shock waves defied established aerodynamic principles for human-made vehicles traveling at supersonic speeds through the atmosphere. A second scramble of Air Force fighters was ordered into the sky over Washington to engage the unknown targets. Air Force pilots reported seeing multiple bright, colorful lights that appeared to move away rapidly as soon as the jets approached their coordinates. Radar operators monitored the ground scopes continuously, witnessing the targets maneuver around the jet interceptors in real time with terrifying precision and agility. As media coverage reached a fever pitch, military leaders recognized the urgent need to address the public anxiety surrounding the repeated airspace incursions. The Pentagon organized the largest military press conference held since the end of World War II to address the sightings. Officials aimed to deliver a definitive scientific explanation that would put an end to rumors of advanced adversary tech or non-human intelligence. Major General John Samford took the podium at the Pentagon to deliver the official government findings to a packed room of reporters. Samford stated that the radar anomalies were caused by a natural weather phenomenon known as a temperature inversion. According to the official statement, layers of warm air trapped beneath cold air had bent radar beams, creating false targets on control room scopes across the Capitol. While temperature inversions were known to occasionally bend radar signals, experienced radar operators strongly rejected the official explanation. Controllers noted that temperature inversions produce weak, scattered radar returns rather than the solid, clear tracks observed over both weekends. Furthermore, the inversion theory failed to account for the simultaneous visual sightings reported by veteran military pilots and ground witnesses in the area. The sharp conflict between the official government narrative and the testimony of trained radar technicians exposed a deep institutional rift. While defense officials prioritized maintaining public calm during a delicate geopolitical era, frontline operators were left dealing with physical telemetry that contradicted the official stance. The discrepancy marked a decisive moment in how official agencies managed sensitive information regarding unknown airborne objects. Historical records from the event confirm that 3 separate radar installations tracked the identical targets simultaneously from different geographic angles. Multi-station tracking makes a simple atmospheric inversion extremely improbable, as bending radar beams would not produce identical relative coordinates across independent radar systems. The physical telemetry collected during those nights pointed directly toward solid reflecting physical craft moving through 3-dimensional space. Investigators from Project Blue Book, the official Air Force study into unidentified flying phenomena, arrived in Washington long after the initial incidents occurred. Their access to key tracking records and personnel was heavily restricted by higher military authorities looking to close the investigation quickly. The rushed handling of the case suggested that reaching a comforting narrative took precedence over thorough scientific inquiry. The official handling of the 1952 Washington, D.C. radar flap established a standard template for how government entities would address future UAP incidents. By attributing complex, multi-sensor tracking events to benign atmospheric causes, authorities successfully reduced immediate public concern. However, this strategy came at the cost of long-term public trust and left open fundamental questions regarding national airspace security. In the years that followed, the 1952 sightings remained a primary focus for researchers, military analysts, and aviation historians studying unexplained phenomena. The case stood out because it combined high-grade radar telemetry, experienced civilian air traffic controller logs, and eyewitness accounts from decorated military pilots. Few other events in modern history presented such a comprehensive multi-sensor record of unknown physical objects. The persistent questions raised by the Washington sightings pushed early atmospheric scientists and defense planners to reevaluate sensor baseline limits. The performance characteristics logged during those July nights demonstrated flight dynamics that far surpassed any known aircraft in existence at the time. Intelligence agencies were forced to consider whether they were observing an advanced technology operating beyond standard physical models. Calibration logs recorded before and after the events confirmed that the radar hardware at Washington National Airport was performing within normal operational tolerances. Technicians had thoroughly inspected the equipment following the first wave of sightings to rule out any potential electrical or mechanical distortions. The diagnostic tests demonstrated that the radar systems were accurately registering real physical returns from the surrounding atmosphere. The physical data gathered over those 2 historical weekends continues to present a significant puzzle for scientific analysis. Documented tracking logs showing rapid acceleration, sudden halts, and sharp directional changes remain unexplained by standard meteorology or conventional aviation technology. The 1952 flap stands as a clear historic benchmark where physical evidence challenged official government narratives. Decades after the glowing targets faded from Washington radar scopes, the 1952 flap remains an unsolved chapter in defense history. The tension between measured physical sensor data and official public explanations continues to influence modern investigations into unidentified aerial phenomena. In the end, the events over the nation's capital remind us that mysteries still linger in the skies above.